Hello chums, and welcome to Taming a Monster, the series where I take some of Gran Turismo 7's most ridiculous cars to see if I can tweak them so that a talentless pleb like me can handle them without being killed to death. Like any common ruffian, I'm using a bog-standard PlayStation 5 controller, and I have all driver assists turned off, except for ABS. Let's see what car is trying to murder me today. Update 1.61 brought with it the usual collection of 5 engine swaps. While 3 of them were very boring, and one of them was the GT500 engine for the Celica that I covered last time, there was one option that stood out for being utterly bonkers. I have no idea who decided to fit a big turbo Subaru flat 4 rally engine to a mid-engine V6 Renault, but I like them. As usual, all upgrades have been fitted, including power upgrades, weight reduction, wide body and the body rigidity increase. None of the settings have yet been touched except for downforce, which is maxed, and the transmission, which has already been adjusted to suit this car. I have fitted aftermarket wheels in the largest size, which is likely a bad idea, because larger wheels with low profile tyres will typically make the car feel more agile, or in this case, twitchy and unstable. If you want to give yourself the best chance, I would recommend the smallest wheel size. I have fitted a front splitter for front downforce, and a rear wing for rear downforce. Both rear wing options give the same downforce values, which is to say, not enough. If you're interested in learning more about aero, downforce, or any other aspect of tuning your car, I have a series called Tuning for Beginners which covers everything from suspension to differential to the transmission. Like with other recent Taming a Monster videos, I decided to take the Subaru Renault to the Nordschleife to get a baseline lap before anything else. This is so that I can see how much my setup will improve the lap time by and either make me look really clever when I knock 20 seconds off, or it'll make me look like a twat if the car isn't any faster. This car surprised me, considering its reputation. In the real world, the Clio V6 has a well-deserved reputation for being quite terrifying to drive, and that's a car with only 250 horsepower. This one has 800, so you would expect it to behave like a truly cursed machine. However, the starting point wasn't actually that bad. It was by no means easy though. This car is very unstable at high speeds, being prone to power oversteer and lift-off oversteer at all speeds. High-speed sections like the Foxhole had my butthole a-puckering. I made a few mistakes here and there, but nothing that cost me a significant amount of time. The thing that cost the most time in this car was probably the lack of confidence and the almost constant minor corrections on every single corner. So the car was relatively easy to keep on the track, but it was very difficult to get the best out of. Either way, my baseline lap was a 6 minutes 36. For comparison, 6 minutes 36 is a second ahead of the K24 swapped Suzuki Jimny. Ow! For my first changes, I increased the natural frequency and anti-roll bars, which may not help with the stability, but it will reduce body roll and give me a better starting point for further changes. I set both values significantly higher at the rear to improve braking stability, though this may increase power oversteer. I then set up a custom race at the Alsace course in order to test my adjustments. The reduction in body roll made the car feel nicer, but it certainly wasn't easier. As I expected, the power oversteer was still very prominent, if not worse, although some of the lift-off oversteer was improved. General high-speed behaviour was slightly more predictable. Undoubtedly though, this car is still an unruly little bastard, just like my pet Chihuahua. Clearly though, I was not having as many problems as my opponents. Oh move, you poxy custard cream eating tosspot! For my next adjustments, I adjusted the suspension. I slightly increased the body height in the hopes that this would slow down some of the car's twitchiness when changing direction. I increased compression because the car was quite bouncy over curbs. I decreased camber, which can help with straight line traction. I added some front toe out in order to help with overall stability, and I added some rear toe in to reduce power oversteer. I then adjusted the LSD. I decreased acceleration sensitivity to reduce power oversteer. I slightly reduced braking sensitivity, which usually helps the brakes feel sharper, and I left initial torque alone. The car generally felt tidier to drive, with the power oversteer being easier to predict and work with. Lift-off oversteer was also much improved, however the car did still suffer from some instability, which if anything is down to aerodynamic limitations more than anything else. Because hatchbacks typically don't get custom wings available, this car is limited to having only 150 points of downforce at the rear. Generally, this isn't really enough to keep a car particularly stable when it's capable of 200 miles per hour. This is made worse by the front downforce being almost as high, at 100 points. Typically, for road cars to be stable, front downforce is best set 100 points lower than the rear, though this isn't quite as important in front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive cars. For my final tweaks, I reduced the front downforce to try and improve high-speed stability, and I added a few kilos of ballast weight to the front axle, which will also improve general stability, and since the brakes on this car seem to be genuinely decent, it shouldn't affect braking distances too much. The car felt much more reasonable now, though my adjustments had introduced some understeer in certain situations, though I will quite happily take some understeer in place of the bonkers handling this car had before. So, it's time to go to the Nürburgring and see how much I have improved by. No more changes were needed to the setup, so this was what I ran with. The Renault Baru Klimpreza is one of the most unique engine swaps in the game, and I can't think of much of a precedent for it. I'm all for it though. Since Gran Turismo has become a sea of 2JZ, LS7, VR38 and Chiron engines, it's nice to see something completely off the wall. It's also a pretty rare instance of the replacement engine being smaller than the standard engine. With the engine being around 50 kilograms lighter, it also means that the massive boost in power hasn't come at the expense of braking performance. Better still, the weight balance gives the car decent traction out of corners, so it's nowhere near as power slidey as your average front engine car with this kind of power. Still, the headline here isn't the way the car drives, which is sketchy but manageable, it's simply how nutty the idea of a 4-cylinder turbo boxer replacing a naturally aspirated V6 is. This is the kind of imagination that Polyphony desperately needs more of when every recent update has been a stagnant mix of a sporty car, a weird slow car, and a terrible hybrid SUV with a couple of 2JZ and LS7 swaps, while the events are more of the same chase the rabbit horse crap. Oh, I was talking about the Subaru. Buy it, it's jolly good fun. In the end, the imp Clio managed a 6 minutes 26, which was about 10 seconds faster than my first attempt. My first attempt would have been 3 to 4 seconds faster if I didn't have any incidents, so this is more like a 6 or 7 second improvement. Increasing downforce at the front would probably make up some more time, but the potential cost to stability and consistency could hurt the time. So, that was my attempt to tame a monster. I hope my settings helped or that you enjoyed this video. Join me next time where I'll be driving something that's probably less interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're feeling particularly generous, I would greatly appreciate your subscription. Take care now, and ta-ra.